Welcome to the Spiritual Badass Podcast. I am your host, Erin Stabile. I am a medium, intuitive, Akashic and past life guide, spiritual life coach, and Reiki master teacher. My goal is to enlighten and empower other women to live their best, most authentic lives. I do this through spirituality and my no BS approach to life. I hope my podcast inspires you to know your dream life is possible and that it's waiting for you. Let's get started. So today on the Spiritual Badass Podcast, we have Christine Noël. And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for having me. And I love your name, Spiritual Badass. That's just awesome. So I am Christine Noël. Can you hear me okay, first of all? Okay. I am Christine Noël, and I am a life balance coach. I am also a world champion ballroom dancer, which is where all of my disciplines and hard work ethic and all of that competitive side comes in. And I also host a podcast called Today Over Tea. And mine is all about starting the conversation. My biggest metaphor is, you go back to Thanksgiving and you avoid a lot of topics, right? Because everyone's on a different generation, different mindset, different political view, all these things. And I feel like I'm from the generation of millennials where we're trying to have those conversations and we're trying to be better as humans and we're calling out the older generations a little bit. But I think if it can be explained and productive conversation, then it's so worth it and it's efficient and we move forward. And I think a lot of healing can happen from that. So
I really like that, and it's hard, especially nowadays when you're trying to learn and understand, for me, the Black Lives Matter movement is something that I've tried to understand more. And I find myself not engaging in it because I don't know enough. And I feel nervous to be attacked or, you know what I mean? Or not being. So like those topics, I'm not a political person, you know what I mean? I kind of avoid that stuff because it's just, I don't know it. I don't understand it. And I love that you kind of dig into that, and kind of bring it to the surface.
Definitely. I appreciate that. And I think a lot of people feel the way that you do, which is the reason. I've never been scared of confrontation. I've never been scared of a topic that, I was always the girl that wanted to talk about sex and wanted to talk about, Black lives and all these different things. And I'm a white girl over here. I am now in an interracial relationship and have been for 4 years. So I think that helps. I still don't know. I did a podcast, a whole thing about it once the protests were going on. And I sat with a friend of mine who is Black, who is a very, very eloquent speaker when it comes to, he's a university professor and all these things. And he kind of held my hand through it because I didn't want it to come off like, what does this white girl know about Black Lives Matter? But I also wanted them to know that this is my platform and this is the way that I feel like I can contribute to the cause. Was just to let's talk about all the questions that we may have. Let's open it up. Let's be vulnerable and let's discuss it in a healthy way so we can show people that it doesn't matter what side you're on. It doesn't matter who you are, what color you are. This is our world now. And we have to, we have to conversate about it. So, and that goes for anything, homosexuality, all that stuff. Sorry to cut you, but yeah.
No, you're fine. No, I really like that too. And, I guess my approach kind of has been just to understand Black lives more, get more involved in their businesses. And if I can purchase kind of the back end, I'm just not a you know what I mean? Like show it. But that's just kind of my personal, where I feel more comfortable. You know what I mean? And
everyone has their way of contributing and has their gifts. And I don't think it should feel forced. I think if you feel that you can contribute in your own way, but it's not a way that someone else does, that doesn't mean that you're less than. I think everybody needs to contribute in the way they feel comfortable. And I don't feel comfortable going specifically to the protests. That's just my personal, but I felt comfortable voicing on my podcast and discussing things and, talking about my fiance's, journey, because he was Haitian or is Haitian and came into this country, and that's a whole different conversation because he's not African American, he's Haitian, but in this country, Black is Black. And so we kind of had that conversation as well of just like the viewpoint of like learning how to be Black in America is different from any other place in the world.
Interesting.
it's just, I mean, and I didn't even know this stuff until we discussed it. And it's like, these are the conversations that matter. These are the
Yep.
things that we need to be talking about, and not beating around the bush or just throwing it under the rug, because this is what's going to help move society forward and change future generations and evolve and just create less trauma in our lives. I mean, we were just talking about this before we started, that I feel like I'm spending half of my life unlearning bad habits that have been predispositioned or taught to me in school, in society, and environment, through our parents by no fault of their own, just because that's what they know, and they can't teach you what they don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, as a millennial, what was I watching yesterday? Oh, I can't remember what it was. I was watching something and they were saying that our generation, oh, it was Brene Brown. Do you know Brene Brown?
Mm-hmm.
Love her. I was watching her on Red Table Talk with Jada, and she said, oh my God, I'm just obsessed. I definitely modeled my podcast off of Jada's Red Table Talk, but she had Brene Brown on, and she said, I'm really impressed with the millennials and Gen Zers, because they're calling us out, right? Because she's from the older generation. She said, they're calling us out and thinking that we don't know what's going on, you know? And it's like, I kind of trust their judgment. We don't know what's going on. We're figuring it out as we go, but we're all figuring it out together. And that's what's so cool about Jada's show, is it's multi-generational. So it's got, you know, everything. And it was such an open, honest communication. And there was no pointing fingers, no faults, no like, you didn't teach me what you should have taught me. Like, Willow looked at her mom and was like, I can't believe that we're going through this together. And I'm happy that we're learning about each other. And it was just so caring, you know, and compassionate. And that's where we need to come from, because we're here now and we can't change the past. And we all need to be compassionate about each other and our growth. And I feel like my mom and I are kind of on a similar journey, which is crazy because we're 20 something years apart, but she's going through it, and that's it. And I'm proud of her for going through it, you know?
Yeah. It's that learning aspect, you know. I think if we're always at least trying to do better and to learn and to grow, you know, that's really all anybody can ask of anybody, you know, is it's just make an effort, you know, and make an effort how comfortable you're making that effort, you know. And I read and pay attention, and, you know, it's just doing that, you know, part of it. But so how do you, like with the mindset part, you know, we were kind of talking earlier, I'm 41 and I'm just starting to figure out how to kind of heal and shift and do all of these things that I probably should have been doing my whole life. But like I said, we have really no idea. And
who's going to teach you? You know?
And our parents were taught by, you know, their parents who taught.
Oh, totally.
And and that's not an excuse. That's just how it is. That's
the resources weren't there. It's not your fault. You just didn't have what Oprah says, you don't know what you don't know. And when you know better, you do better. I mean, it's the cliche is what it is, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, I've kind of taken the approach through my healing of, you know, they did the best they could, you know, and I've never been one to blame my past on my parents or what happened, but I am the circumstance of things that happened, you know, and it's just me learning to grow from that. So my mindset work has been very deep. And how do I break those cords of, you know, those things that have happened and kind of those deep traumas, you know? So I like how you do the life balance, because as a mom, that's your whole focus. Like,
absolutely.
My mom died when I was young. So my whole focus was my kids. I work. My kids, I never leave them, like, you know what I mean? And now that I'm kind of doing my spiritual work and my coaching, and I'm starting to take time for myself that I have not done for, well, my daughter's 15. So, you know, almost 16 years. And
how does that make you feel?
It's different. I mean, because they're kind of getting old enough where they don't need me as much. So it's kind of a bummer, but in the same respect, I wasn't happy. You know, I call it the mom bot life. I wasn't happy. You know, when you work, you come home, you get kids to daycare, you pick kids up from daycare, you bathe them, you clean them, you feed them. And it's just the same thing over and over, you know, and it gets daunting. I didn't really go work out. I didn't do anything for myself. And my
Mm-hmm.
son had severe anxiety. I couldn't leave him.
Mm.
There was just all these little things that added up to making it really difficult for me to do things for myself. And
But do you feel guilty when you do?
when they were little, yes, I
Yeah.
did. When they were like little, like my son hit with his anxiety, he could not be away from us.
Mm.
And if we would leave him like with my in-laws, I mean, he would just cry the whole time. So it's like
Right.
we were kind of, even if I would just leave him with my husband, he would cry the whole time. So it was kind of this caveat where I was stuck. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Sure.
just leaving my kids. It was leaving my kid with severe separation anxiety who
Yeah.
cried the entire time we were gone. So that guilt like amplifies, you know,
Totally.
100 times over. So it start adapting to, this is what it is. I'm here 24/7. If I'm not at
Right.
work, I'm at home, and you get used to it. And that's where the mom life kind of steps up, and you get so used to it. And 3 years ago, I had gastric surgery, and I kind of changed my entire life. And I started taking that time for myself. And, you know, my husband made space for me to be able to do that. I started taking Reiki,
That's amazing.
mediumship. Like I just said, look, I need to do this, you know, and
Good for you.
you know, he didn't complain. I mean, there are some days where the classes went long and he was like, oh, okay. Like, are we going to do anything today? Or, you know, but I mean, he gave me that space to do those things. You know, he didn't put guilt on me. He didn't, you know what I mean? And
Oh, totally.
not everybody might not have that, but it's still taking the stand for yourself, you know, to say, this is what I need. And sometimes we don't stand up for ourselves and say, I need this time. I need to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And it's part of that, you know, through, I think even you probably preach this as well. Like you have to stand up for what you want, what you need. You need to ask for what you need. You know, you have to put yourself as somewhat of a priority, you know, and my mom did not make herself a priority, and she died at 42. You know, she didn't take care of herself. And
wow.
so
that's powerful.
It's not that, I mean, she died of leukemia, so it's not
still though.
She worked a lot. She didn't eat properly. She didn't exercise, like all of these little things that she could have been doing, she didn't do. And, you know, I just look back and I think, oh, you know, I'm 41. So it's like, you have to just keep that stuff in mind, you know?
What you're going through is totally normal. I'm not a mom yet, but from what I've heard from all moms, that's just like the work-life balance is just non-existent. You just survive.
Yep.
What's been interesting with my work and my clients is, mom or no mom, I feel like more people are creating that non-existent work-life balance, surviving on the hamster wheel. And it's not even because of kids. And that's the tough part, is like, so kids, no kids, it doesn't matter. Everyone's trying to survive at this point. And then the pandemic hit on top of that, and everyone realized how the same we really were.
Yep.
And I love what you said before about owning your space and telling people, I need this, and really grabbing like, this is what I need. That was so not addressed, you know, in my grandparents' time, in your parents' time. Like they didn't do that. Like, you are a helper. You are someone who is there for other people. And if you don't, you're selfish, and taking time for yourself is not a thing. Self-care does not exist. And it's just now starting to become something that people are like, okay, we can't keep going on this track. It's not sustainable. It's not healthy. It's not fun. Why are we living if we're doing this? It doesn't make any sense. And you are no good to anybody else, your kids, your husband, your parents, whoever you have in your life, if you are not good. And so you're going to drain your battery so low, and you're going to become something that, I mean, if it's like, if you get sick, now everyone has to help you, which is the opposite that you want to do. Right. So I preach that. We were talking about this a little bit before we started as well, is basically switching the opposite of what society tells us, and creating we create habits around our responsibilities. So like, oh, okay, I want to work out. Well, the kids have all of this stuff. And so I guess I have this day. And then kid gets sick. He's at home all day. Well, working out's not happening, right? You always get the short end of the stick, always. And we build our habits around what it is that we have to do in our life versus, I believe, mom, no mom, it doesn't matter what responsibilities you have in your life. You need to build healthy habits for yourself first, and then all the responsibilities fill in. Now, obviously, there are major priorities: your kids, your husband, work, paying the bills. There are certain things that have to take priority. But when you start to write down everything of your values, of what you're trying to accomplish in life, and what you want to be happy, and then you see where you're wasting your time. What are your energy consumers? And if we write all these things down, you have 2 or 3 lists, you're going to realize that there's a disconnect somewhere. And you're going to actually find more time than you actually thought you had. Because we consume a lot of our energy doing things that are not even helping us get to our happiness or helping us with our values or raise good kids or whatever it is that we're trying to do. And we're like, wow, that's an hour of my time every day, or that's 4 hours a week that you have now that maybe for yourself, instead of scrolling through Instagram, there's so many different things. I mean, I say that, as our generation, but for moms, I'm thinking there's a lot of things that now can almost be automated sometimes. We have so many amazing resources or so many amazing help groups or, whatever, all these things that can help women to find a space that allows them to create more time for themselves. And let me tell you something, when you're happier, you're a better parent, you're a better wife, so your husband may be like, well, your thing ran over today, but I guarantee you're going to have more energy. You're going to be happier because you went to this particular meeting or this particular, group or whatever. And then you're going to come home happier, and that's going to lead for a happier marriage.
Yeah, definitely. And when you look back, I mean, my kids are 11 and 15, and then you kind of look back and, man, those younger years, with my son, he was particularly tiring, and
yeah.
And you kind of look back and you're like, holy Moses. And it, as they're older now, they still need a lot of time, but they just need time in different ways. They need time for homework.
Right.
They need time for me telling them to clean the room 100 times,
yeah.
The amount of time your kids need you never shifts. It's just what they need from you shifts. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's learning, like tonight, I'm like, I need you guys to be quiet for an hour. And they're not always quiet, but,
yeah.
I have to be like, you guys, I need an hour. Like, I don't ask how much of you, please, and it's kind of scheduling that stuff in, like I have my spiritual business and I have my day job and the kids have stuff. So it's like, I live on the calendar. I'm like, you guys, you have to like use a calendar. You have to do this, and you lay out your week and you're like, oh, like this week is tomorrow night. I think is the only night I don't have something scheduled. So I'm kind of like, oh, I'm so tired. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I'm so tired.
Now you're like, I just want to sleep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
So it's compartmentalizing those things. And, my daughter works now. So the last 2 nights I've spent doing sessions in my car, waiting for her to get out of work. I leave work. I wait for her to get out. It's like people are like, how do you do it? You're so busy. I'm like, you autopilot it. You know what I mean? Like,
well, you can't think about the week. You think about the day, the hour. Like I do, as a crazy entrepreneur person that I am, I do the same thing. I'm like, if I look back at the week and I'm like, wow, how did I do all of that? And if I would have thought about it, I would have been completely overwhelmed. And that's another way that I teach, is by a little bit at a time. My mom always used to have this issue. We would always say, hey, let's clean the downstairs basement or whatever. We're trying to get this cleaned up, or let's organize your closet or whatever. She can never get started. It's completely overwhelming. And it is, when you look at it as one giant piece, absolutely. But let's just take one box and let's organize this box. Now all of a sudden it's not so crazy, right? And that sounds so easy to do, but it is really that easy, and you can't overcomplicate it in your head, because then what happens is you never get started. And that's an hour of time that you're stressing that you could have actually organized something, right?
Yeah, I think that for me, it's always the starting of things. Totally. If I'm not prepared to do, like, it's always the starting once. And I notice it in my kids as well. Like,
Yeah.
if we're not kind of prepared to do this errand or do that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we have to go do this. I mean, it's just like dread, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the whole schedule gets shifted. Everything's off balance. Totally. But I think it's a matter of, again, it's one thing at a time, you know, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time. And I think especially in this pandemic, like, I mean, people are asking me too how I'm doing. And I'm like, you know, I'm doing well, but I can't plan anything more than a month in advance at this point. And my year used to be planned out. You know, for the most part, I had like a skeleton agenda and I would fill things in, but I can't travel. I can't do any of these things right now. So I'm planning 1 month at a time, just trying to make it make sense. But it's the daily things. Like, I think people underestimate how important and how valuable it can be to wake up in the morning and the first thing that you do instead of checking your phone is do 5 minutes of meditation, or take 5 minutes to yourself before the kids run in, before you're downstairs and you have to be mom. You get 5 minutes or 10 minutes to yourself where you just get to breathe and you listen to a calming audio on YouTube and you just set your intentions for the day, you know? And as crazy or as uncomfortable as that feels maybe for the first few times, the more you do it, the more you're going to look forward to that time. And I think those are things that it's like, yeah, okay, but that's not going to change my whole life. It's like, no, it's not going to change your whole life. It's going to help you clean out the clutter in your brain and clarify your life for a second. Because right now, there's not one magic wand that's going to change your whole life. But if you start doing something that at least allows you the space to think about what it is that you actually want, because so many people said they wanted more time. Guess what? The world delivered. They gave them a pandemic. And do you know how many people got things done in that time? I saw so many people saying, I'm bored. I can't spend this much time with my family. I have to get out. I have to do things. And I'm like, you said you wanted more time. What did you want more time for? Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And that's the ironic part, is like, you say you want these things, and then if the universe delivers it to you, what are you going to do with it? Nobody has a plan. So if you set out a plan, and if you don't know a plan right now, that's fine, but do some things, some meditation, some breathing exercises, just take a walk around the block by yourself and think about what it is you want to do and what value you want to add to this world or to your kid's life, to your husband's life, to whatever. And then you can start to understand what it is, how you want to move forward. And that's when you start to set, okay, well, this is a value of mine. It's very important. And in order to do that, I need to do this. And that means that I can't do this anymore. You're going to have to cut some things out. You're going to have to say no, you know? And I bet that's really hard for you too, because you want to do all these things. And sometimes it's like, I can't do everything right now. I have to focus on the one thing that's going to help me for the next 5 to 6 months be successful in this world and maintain my balance.
And the saying no is something that I've never done. And I do now, because I'm starting to value myself more, you know, and
you have to.
And saying no, and just like, no, I don't want to, no, you know, and not feeling guilty about it. You know what I mean? I don't want to do things that suck out my soul because it's a waste
terrible.
Of your time,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Like, that's not what I want to do right now. It's not how I want to spend my time. It's not what I want to be doing. Like, man,
exactly.
I'm tired. You know, sometimes our friends like, I want to do something on Sunday. I'm like, dude, I don't put clothes on Sunday. No, like, I'm not putting a bra on. I'm not doing anything. No, Amen. I'm not leaving my house. I'm not doing anything.
And that's totally fine. Like, friends, family members, everyone around you needs to understand that in order for you to be the best version of yourself for them, you have to give yourself time. And I will say that takes a conversation. You can't just ghost people and say, you know, and I'm speaking to your audience as well. Like, you can't just say, okay, I've made a decision and it's going to be about me and I'm going to make time for myself and that's great. And then nobody's informed. And then everyone's life shifts because you're not the central star anymore. And it's like, what's happening? Why is mom acting weird? Why is my wife not here when I need her? So you have to, and by having these conversations specifically with your significant other, with your kids, with your parents or whoever it is, coworkers, friends that want to go out drinking or whatever it is, that's going to, every time you have that conversation, you're standing up for yourself and you're telling them, I'm choosing me. And, you know, specifically for friends and stuff, because I feel like that's the layers on, you know, I will fit you in when when it aligns with my values, right? If you have a child's birthday party and I feel like that's important because I value kids right now, then I will show up to your kid's birthday party. I'll be the first one there. I'll have a gift and everything. It'll be great. But if you just want to go out for drinks on a Sunday, like, no, it's family time. Like, I have to value me and I have to value my family. And they have to understand that. And if they don't, then that's another no, goodbye, thank you, next, whatever it is that you want to say, you know. And then your husband, like, I think it's amazing that you said you have such an amazing support system and that he was there for you when you said, I need this, like, I need to start scheduling time for myself. And he takes care of the kids and he's there for you and supporting you. That's the ideal partnership.
Yeah. You know, and I remember before I met him, I just told the universe, I told God, I said, look, I want somebody I can trust, somebody that's going to be there. And, you know, we've been together, I don't know, what year is it? I don't know, 18 years. I don't even know. 18 years, 17 years married, I think.
That's amazing.
And it's like, you know, I just never wanted to not trust, or, you know, I wanted a good husband that helped with the kids. Like, those are just the things that I was done settling for kind of shitty relationships, you know. And
good for you.
And it's not all sunshine and roses, but, you know,
no relationship is.
It's a learning process, and
absolutely,
it's a growing process. And I mean, even the kids sometimes are like, you have a shirt that says good vibes, but you're yelling. And I'm like, well, are you guys really doing anything to help me right now? You know, I said, I've asked you 100, you know, like, you hit this limit, and they're like, you're talking about positivity and doing these things. And I said, yeah. And I said, and you guys are testing my limits, you know, like, you have to contribute. You have to, you know, and they're kids, they're figuring it out at the same time. And I'm trying not to do to them what was done to me. You know what I mean? You have all these cycles and all these patterns that you're in my mindset, I'm trying to figure out, and trying not to do the same things to them, and trying to teach them differently. And, you know, and part of it is, it's just who you are. But then part of it is, okay, I need to take a step back. I need to think, you know, I've had to apologize to my daughter before getting angry or whatever. And
that's very adult and honest. I think a lot of adults can't even do that. Parents, they're like, I'm the parent, I don't need to apologize to you and my behavior. And I think I think it's extremely vulnerable, and it's extremely self-aware for parents to realize, hey, we're figuring it out too. We're making mistakes, and we're going to get through this together. And I think your kids will value you more. They will trust you more because they know you're not just lying or you're faking it till you make it, you know, because we kind of all are.
Yeah.
But they don't want you to pretend like you're not, because then they're like, well, how can I take you seriously when you're basically lying to my face?
Yeah.
You know, and that's okay. I think there's this stigma in society that says that parents have to have it all figured out. And I'm sorry, you don't do a test, you don't take a certification, you don't go through a course, there's no handbook. Anybody who has sex and gets pregnant can have a kid. And there is no way that all of these people can automatically are born with these reflexes, these maternal instincts and all of these things. That's fantastic. Yeah, that'll help me get the baby on my boob, and that'll help me figure out all these things. Sorry, can we say that? Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's not going to help you create quality, kind, respectful, productive humans in this world. That is you. And that is something that if you are not solid in yourself and you're not teaching yourself how to have self-love and self-care and valuing and respecting yourself, then how do you expect your daughter to respect herself? She's going to be like, well, my mom doesn't do any of that stuff, so I'm not going to do it either. And even if you don't say it, they're just around it. And it becomes these limiting beliefs that are built into these kids' lives that they then grow up as adults. And they're like, well, I guess my mom never did any of that stuff, so I don't do it either. And it's like, but if you would have just had a conversation about it, you know? So I'm all about like honesty, and it does not make you weaker to tell your kids that you don't have it all figured out. They will value you more, and they will have more conversations with you because they're going to feel like you get them. You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
like, oh my gosh, mom doesn't have it figured out either. And she's telling me that. That's amazing. Like my mom just told me the other day that she decided to finally get someone that she can talk to. You know, I can't be her life coach, but I've been helping her as she goes. But she's a teacher. She's going back to school in a pandemic, which is
Yep.
bananas that they're making those teachers do that. She's not getting any extra pay. She's stressing out every time there's a new COVID infection. And she's taking care of her dad who's 90. I mean, I can't even imagine the stress she's going through. And she's handling it like a champ, and she has days where she breaks down. And I said, Mom, you need to get someone to talk to. My brother said the same thing. My brother just got himself someone, and he's like, you need to talk to someone. It is so therapeutic. She finally did it. Oh my God, life changing. She said, I feel so great after even just our first session. And I was like, exactly. There's no weakness in that.
Yep.
And
And
by her
that's
telling me that, you know?
yeah, that's the biggest part. When I tell anybody, whether they want to work with me or whoever it is, you have to find who helps you, you know,
Yes.
if it's a therapist and a coach, and maybe it's a
Whatever.
workout person, and maybe it's somebody that helps you eat. I mean,
Yeah,
find
totally.
everybody that you
I love
need,
that.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not one or the other. And if you choose to take medication and it works, awesome. Like I'm not somebody who has had luck with therapy or medication. And it took me until finding my spiritual work to get a release on my anxiety and my depression and those heaviness and all of those things. You have to be your own advocate. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You have to figure out what is
That
going
part right there.
to
Preach. Yeah.
do it. You know what I mean? And if you have to go through 20 coaches because you don't feel it with them, that's okay.
That's okay.
It doesn't matter. Like you have to find who, you know, maybe they work with you and maybe a third person.
And that's
and
fine.
it's
Because we're
what they
going to
need.
provide something different for them. Yeah. I love what you just said there. Again, it's coming back to owning your own happiness. You have to take control of your life. There is no law, no society, no president that wins, no whatever that is going to change your life for you. I don't care what it is that anybody thinks. Oh, if this person's in office, my whole world's going to be great. If I just had this relationship, my whole world's going to be great. If I had $1 million, I would be so happy. Like, let me tell you, that kind of stuff does not bring happiness. You have to own your own happiness, and you have to have your happiness as something that you have inside of you that is not brought on by a significant other, money, a career, because those are identity shapers. Those are things that you will identify yourself in. And if you attach your happiness to that, when those things go away, your happiness goes with it. And that is so terrifying. Like you have to have control over your happiness. And by asking for help and finding out the first journey to doing that, because we are not taught that in school, we are not taught any of these things. You have to, again, own your journey and be in charge of, I'm going to hire this coach. I'm going to talk to this person. I'm going to schedule once a week and really get on it, because nobody's going to do that for you.
You know,
and you're just going to keep going in a spiral of darkness, and you're never going to get out, and you're going to expect some fairy godmother to come in and wave her magic wand. That's not realistic. It's just not.
Yep. And you know, you can tell the people that are just not ready for, you know, to take on healing as a responsibility, you know, and that's a personal choice, but
it is.
You know, I find myself kind of letting those people go out of my life. You know, you can only handle it for so long. They're kind of a drain, and you can still be there and be supportive, but you know, I mean, you just know people aren't ready, you know, and it's sad, but that's their choice, you know, and you have to just kind of be okay with letting them do their thing. And
I think the scariest part for most people is that you're going to change. Like if you do the work, you're going to see changes. And I think first, people are scared of change, right? Which is crazy, because that's the only constant. Like change is inevitable. Nothing is going to stay the same forever. And we, as humans, we evolve and grow. And if you're not growing, you're basically dying. We're like a tree, you know, you have to keep growing. And so that means learning new things, testing your skills, pushing yourself. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned in the last 10 years is your inner circle. And as kids, we're taught friends, you know, like you have a birthday party and you have 50 of your closest friends there, right? And as adults, we don't have 50 closest friends. That doesn't make sense. But as you get older, you start to make friends, and then you start to lose some. And it's so sad because these people have been with you for years, and you're like, what did I do wrong? You know? And now as an adult, I'm realizing, I didn't do anything wrong. The universe was just, we were going in different directions, and that's okay. Yeah. And we just had to find some reason, you know, whether it was like they didn't support me in this, or I didn't support, or whatever it is, you know, like they moved away and we didn't keep in touch or whatever. And creating space for that. The people who aren't ready to make those changes, they don't want to lose people in their life. They don't want to say no. They don't want to make those changes. They would rather just sit in a puddle sometimes of their sadness. And it's easier to have a pity party. You know, it is, but you're going to have to make the change eventually, because what is the end of that road? You hit a wall eventually, and then you either have to get someone, and now you could have used all that time and had an abundant life, or what's the worst case scenario? Suicide, you know, I mean, those are, I think, like the worst of depression right there. Mm-hmm. And so something will have to give eventually.
I think the worst part is thinking, you know, whenever it's my exit time, of my regrets. Like, I don't want to have the regrets. I want to have the fulfilling things that I always wanted to do. You know, I don't want to look back and say, if I just would have tried this, or if I just would have,
that's the worst,
taken a chance, or,
right there.
You know, and it's just, they always say to leap without looking or whatever, you know, and I would rather have a whole bunch of shit that I tried and failed at than to never try at all, you know?
And it's not a failure. It's a lesson.
Yep.
Right.
Everything is a lesson.
Oh my God.
Nothing is ever a punishment. Nothing is ever, even no matter how deep or how hard it is, whatever happens to us or whatever we do make a choice, it's all a lesson. It's all something to propel us forward, so that we either don't make the same mistake, or we get the right people in our lives, or, you know, and that can be hard, because there's a lot of hard things that happen, but everything happens, you know, to give us opportunity to change or to do something different.
To grow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even the people, like, everyone's like, oh my gosh, finding your significant other, you know, like everyone's so, you know, appreciative. I'm talking to someone later this week about a relationship that didn't work out. And, you know, he's like, wow, congratulations on your engagement. Like, I hope I find someone like what you guys have. And I'm like, you will. Like, you totally will. There's someone for everyone out there, and they're coming. But you have to know that that person that just left you, or you left, was not your person. And the sooner you get them out of your brain, as much as you're like, oh, but we could get back, this whole getting back together thing, and all this, like, I don't understand it, because I'm like,
I'm a one and done type of person.
Well, right. And I mean, there's some exceptions. I've heard some beautiful stories, you know, recently, which I am all for. But at the end of the day, the people that I dated before I met my fiance were all great people. I had very good experiences, but I knew very quickly they were not my person. But even though I stayed in them maybe longer, it was because I was learning about myself, or they were the perfect person at that time for what I was going through. I was not in a place of commitment. So, and they weren't either. So it just made sense, you know, or whatever. That's just one example. There's so many different ways. If you have trauma in a relationship, which a lot of people do, what did you learn from that trauma? Mm-hmm. What is the thing that taught you? Maybe you learned how strong you are, and you can be proud of yourself for that. Like, God put you through this, or the universe put you through this, and you made it. You know, like, and now you're going into another relationship, hopefully cleaning out some of that baggage, but also understanding, like, I got this.
Understanding what you deserve and what you're going to allow. And
oh my God, that too. Like, I'll never go through that again, because I'm never going to put myself in a position of someone I don't deserve, that treated me like crap and doesn't know what he has. You know, and maybe some people just don't know their self-worth like that. So they need an experience like that to go through in order to learn their self-worth. Some people, you know, if you're blessed with good parents and good environment, then hopefully you know your self-worth, and you know that you won't put up with anything like that. But yeah, those things are necessary in order for you to grow and become the person that you are.
Absolutely.
The problem that I have is what we learn around that is bad habits that we have to relearn, you know, but the traumas and the experiences that maybe, like you said, the failures, the things that didn't work out, those are learning experiences. Like those make us better for sure.
Yep. They help guide us in a new direction, you know, and
oh, totally.
I
Otherwise
had gastric surgery,
time.
but you know, like I had a lot of stuff leading up to the gastric surgery, and it wasn't until after I had the surgery, I went into the surgery thinking I really did not have an eating issue. And then, because I had a bad knee, I couldn't walk, and
Gotcha.
I was really immobile, which really contributed. For me, being active is something that has just always been something that I've needed to do for myself. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
7 years not being able to really even walk in a grocery store, it just like compiled, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
I really didn't understand until after I had gastric surgery and I could no longer eat whatever, however much,
Yeah.
how much of a mind over matter it really was. Because right now, I mean, still even almost 3 years later, I can only eat 5 ounces of food. So I always weigh my food. I eat with a timer, all these things. And I never realized how much after I had eaten and I was full, that my mind was like, you need more. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? You know?
Yep.
And it took me until having surgery to realize how much of an eating problem I had when I physically, mentally did not think that eating was really my issue, you know, or one of my issues. And it was really amazing for me after, you know, because that was really when I started all of my all of my work. And it was really a light bulb moment for me. Like, wow, I didn't really
I have goosebumps. Like, it sounds so transformative. I love that.
Yeah. And I think until you have almost sometimes these very traumatic experiences that my mom died when I was young, you know, there's just been all of these things for me personally.
Right.
And you have these light bulb moments, you know. When I was young, I drank a lot. And I just remember kind of hearing in my head, like, it's time to make a choice. Are you going to keep on drinking like this, or are you going to, you know? And I was like, fuck, like, I'm going to have to, you know, like, slow down. Cause I was drinking like 6 days a week after work, you know.
Wow.
You know, in your 20s, it's not a huge deal, but I'm like, ooh, dude, 6 days a week, that's a lot, you know. And not just a drink, it was a lot of drinks. And I just remember hearing that voice, you know, and it was a pivotal moment for me. Like, okay, wake up, you know, it's time to shift, you know. And I remember a lot of those times in my life, like, ooh, check yourself.
Right. And I think that also, just to tell anyone who is in their 20s right now, if that is something like that you value, that time, or, you know, spending time with friends or going out and having a good time and being as carefree as possible because life is stressful, and you're like, if I don't do it in my 20s, I'll never do it, then do it. Like, there's no judgment on that. Like, I will never look at someone and say, oh, you party all the time and you drink all the time. Wow, I'm judging you. Like, I would never look at someone like that. If that is your journey at this moment, that's fine. Your journey is going to shift in a year, in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years. Like, whatever it is that you do, you're going to find that no longer serves you. And even for me right now, like, I have a healthy-ish kind of pattern that I do, but in 2 years or a year, I might feel like that no longer serves me. And it's like, well, how's that possible? It's healthy. It's like, but you change. You need different things. So it doesn't matter if the habit is good or bad. Sometimes you need a bad habit. Sometimes you need to binge something, you know, and as long as you're not hurting anybody in the process, including yourself, you know, everything in moderation. And that's why I say it's all about balance. And I love talking about balance. I'm a Libra, so that's where it stems from with the scales. But you can have your cake. I say you can have your cake and eat it too, but you can have cake and you can have, you know, healthy food. You can, if you balance it correctly and you know that if you're going to eat this, you have to do this. Or if you have a high metabolism, whatever, if you're going to stay up all night and work, then you better sleep in the next morning. You know, like, you have to give yourself the give and take that it needs in order to find its balance, but you can't keep running it, you know, burning the candle and not giving more candle. Like, it's just, you know, or filling, the good metaphor is filling up the glass and then drinking it, right? So you can't keep drinking it until it's empty and never filling it back up again. How are you filling up your glass? You know, and maybe that's with self-care. Maybe that's with meditation. Maybe that's with just affirmations in the mirror, looking at yourself every day and saying, I am worthy, I am happy, I am healthy, I value myself and all that I have to offer. You know, little things that you can do that make you feel like you are of value on this planet and that make you happy. You should live in joy as much as you can.
Absolutely. So how do you then help people with that balance? I mean, do you kind of look at their schedule with them, or just try to find their goals, or how do you help people with that part?
So I start with a happiness list. What is it in life that they want to do? It does not matter your starting point. Wherever you are in life, we can start from where you are. And we write down a list of all the things that you want to accomplish in your life. And then we write down a list of all of the things that you're doing, your energy consumers. And how does these two lists compare? And if they're pretty parallel, which most of the time they are not, because otherwise you would have the life that you desire already, we want to find where these two can meet. So if you want to go, if your dream in life is to travel the world or go to a trip on a vacation to Bali, how are you saving up money for that? Are you connecting with people in Bali? Are you what are you doing to get yourself there? And also, if you have habits like, I don't know, we keep saying the going out and drinking, but there's definitely other habits. If you're spending money elsewhere and not saving up for your trip, or if you're, doing all these other things that will not lead to that, then those things need to go. Those are toxic energies, toxic people, toxic activities, and those things need to go. And you have to say no. If you're looking for peace in your life, if you're like, all I want is just to have peace and not to feel stressed, and I just want, okay, great. Well, let's see what's happening over here. Looks like you have a friend that's causing you a lot of trauma. Maybe that friend needs to have limited access to you. Yeah, but this friend really needs me right now. She's going through a rough time and I feel like I'm there for her. Well, it looks like you're going through a rough time by having her dump everything on you, and you're not her therapist. And that's a hard window, hard mirror to show people. But I love what I do because I get to help people accomplish their dreams and create I like to say, their life by design. Because anybody can create whatever they want in life. We have unlimited resources. You just have to know where to look for them. But you have to go through the work. You have to do it. You have to trust that you have to become self-aware. What am I doing? What am I spending my time doing? Am I on social media looking at all of these models thinking I don't look like them? Well, how is that serving you? It's not. We go through some of their limiting beliefs and try to realize why they don't feel like they deserve money. Did your parents always say money doesn't grow on trees? There's not enough to go around. All those things like manifesting, all of these things that I help. But I get to help people work from their happiness list, which means we're only working to build more joy. So I'm not a therapist, which is the best part, because I don't have to go through PTSD and past traumas. We go through traumas if they're relevant to what it is that is blocking the person. But we don't need to, there are other people that do that. I don't have degrees in that to help you go through trauma like that. I'm trying to help, clear out the clutter of your life, give you some clarity, and remove the roadblocks that are helping you that are forcing you from not getting to your goal.
Oh, I love that. I know. And, I think we operate similarly. It's just really helping them with their end goal and just helping people to realize that you really can do and have whatever you want. It's just anything. You have to believe that you deserve it, that you can have it, that, that you have to allow it to come to you. Like there's all these little pieces that, for me as a super negative person that I used to be, it was just, I was very pessimistic. I was very, and for me, asking for help, allowing spirit to bring things, allowing God, allowing the universe, those for me are challenging because I used to be kind of a control freak. All of these little pieces are really important to check yourself, to understand, to let go, and it's, like I always say, it's not about being perfect. It's about taking steps every single day in your mindset, telling yourself positive things. If you catch yourself telling yourself something negative, like, okay, why am I doing this? What do I need to do
Replace
differently?
it with a positive.
Yeah. Flip it. I always say just to flip it. Okay. So that's a real shitty thought. Let's kind of turn that around.
How can we make that better?
And it's not about being perfect and being spot on. And it's about trying to recognize when it happens and just kind of correct yourself. Like, okay, I'm having a bad day. It's okay to be negative, but we don't need to keep on with it, and
perfection doesn't exist. You have to give yourself grace. I do that to myself all the time. I have a list. Oh man, I really wanted to do this every day. How hard is it to meditate, do some audios, read a book, a chapter in a book, do all this, and then all my stuff. And then the week happens and I didn't do it at all. And I'm like, I'm so mad at myself because I'm like, what the heck? I just need to do better. Well, I think it's a lot of pressure. Why don't I start with 1 day a week? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I like to tell my clients that because I'm like, I'm right there on that same boat with you. Just because I have techniques and exercises and all these things that work, I still have to remind myself to do it. It doesn't get any easier. But the point is that you start to learn more about yourself and you start to become so much more self-aware that when you have that negative thought, it doesn't take you 30 minutes to realize, oh crap, did you hear what I said about myself before? Or that I was thinking? No, in that moment, you almost can't even get the words out because you already know and you're retracting it and you're like, never mind. I'm beautiful. I'm bright. I'm, awesome. And think about who it is that you want to be. How do you want to walk around in the world? How do you want to show up in the world? And every day it's going to be better and better.
Yep.
And
one cool thing that I've stopped doing, working full time, having the kids, having a business, like all of these to-do lists, so one thing at the end of the day that I do at work and at home is, what did I get done today? Instead of what didn't I get done? What do I have to do?
I love that.
If you do write out like, oh, I got this done and this done and this done, and you feel so much better. That list of, oh my God, I have 300 things to do, but you feel so much better. So at the end of the day, I try to do that instead of to-do lists. I try to do okay, I got this done and I got 25 emails and it feels so much better.
That is such a good exercise. I love that. Yeah, I do something similar. I just do kind of what I'm grateful for. And every night I write in a journal and I write what I was grateful for that day. So, grateful that I got that interview done, that needed to be done. I'm grateful that, I didn't have to drive today and my fiance did. I mean, as little as that, like it's crazy, but like the little things, I'm grateful that I had that amazing salad for lunch that was so good. You know what I mean? All of it. But you're right. I don't even focus on what I didn't get done because it's still on the list. It'll be there in the morning when I wake up and I'll have to do it. But tomorrow I'm hoping that it's on my gratitude list at night that I got it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It makes a huge shift in my day instead of, oh my gosh, I still have all this to do. Like
it's not going anywhere.
Gives your soul a little bit of a reprieve. You know what I mean?
Totally.
So do you have any parting words? What are you working on right now? Do you have any programs or any of that good stuff going on?
For sure. At the moment, I just have an ebook. Which is really, really fun. It's like a back to balance ebook. It's kind of got like 7 main steps in there and I break everything down and really informative. It's like really, really nice. But it's a good place to start for anyone who's just lost, just feeling like, where do I even begin? Because trust me, we've all been there. Who do I reach out to? Where do I start? It's a great free resource where you can just sign up for it and it'll get delivered to your email and it'll help you become so much more self-aware. Am I doing these things? Oh, I didn't think about that. Should I be doing that? And then you're starting to ask yourself questions, So that's a great resource to start. If anyone would like a 15-minute session with me, I do discovery calls. I love meeting new people. I love helping people. My podcast it's a visual podcast. So it's on YouTube. It's called Today Over Tea. And we do drink tea. It's fabulous. yeah, and that's where we start the conversation about all the things that matter. It's also on Apple and Spotify. But yeah, I think that's it right now. I'm really focusing on that. I really want, I've been using this year to really grow my community and my coaching clients list, because I just feel like there's so many people out there that really need just to get started, you know, and that's where I'm at. I'm not going to overwhelm you with more stuff. That's usually what ends up happening with the coach sometimes. It says like, oh my gosh, now she's going to hold me accountable. I've got all this homework and I'm already overwhelmed. It's not about that. Like, we're going to start with one thing at a time. We're going to talk things through. We're going to discuss where your fears and doubts and overwhelming feelings are coming from. And we're going to start to not make it so scary, you know? So this has been a hard year. My parting words would say it's been a hard year, and everybody needs to become more self-aware and find a place where they can own their happiness. You know, that was kind of the theme of what we were talking about. And so don't be afraid to ask for help. Get rid of the stigma that society says that a therapist or a life coach, you're an adult, you should run your own life. No, everybody needs someone that they need to talk to. And it can't always be your spouse or your parents or your siblings or your kids. Like, they have their own issues to deal with. So they're there for you to support you, but they can't be your life coach.
And you know, it's interesting because it seems like when you find the right person, people, like, things just start making sense and you just start feeling better, and you just have a different drive and a different motivation, and
it's just fabulous. Like, it's a game changer. And that's something that you can't really describe to people, that feeling.
Yeah.
You just have to just trust with blind faith that, you know, you're going to end up finding the right person. Try manifesting, try just saying to yourself, I am, you know, please guide me to a person that can help me, you know, become more balanced or feel better, or help me with this issue or whatever. And you'd be surprised with Facebook and all these connections, how people can connect with each other.
Absolutely. So do you have a website or Facebook? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. It's Christine Barr. So if Christine Barr Noël is my coaching. I'll be married next year. I just started using my married name early because I didn't want it to be taken on like domains and stuff. So, but also it's just, you know, ready to be married. Let's put it that way. But so Christine Barr is my personal profile. It's CHRISTINE and then BAR with one R. And then, yeah, I have an amazing group, which if you want, I can send you links and you can link all this stuff.
That'd be awesome.
My group is, we just hit 600 people. It's just awesome. And it's all about tips and tricks and free resources of creating healthy habits, sustainable ways of living. So it's not just like, oh, I made it work and then I crashed, and then I made it work and then I crashed. Like, we're consistent, you know, and holding each other accountable, and really working towards that life by design. That's the idea. And my website is christinebarnoel.com, where you can sign up for the ebook, and you can even do a 15-minute discovery call with me, and kind of has some other resources on there. So,
we'll put all those links in there.
Yeah, I'll send them to you. No worries.
But it was great having you on today, and I thank you very much. Thank you for joining us for the Spiritual Badass podcast. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. I want to wish you nothing but love, light, and high vibes. If you want to find out more information, you can find me at vintagemoons.com, or you can find me on Instagram at vintagemoonserin.